Hey guys, so my story is that I grew up in a Christian family, and from a really young age I saw my parents' faith, and I really admired their faith and the way they loved God. And so I learned a lot about God living with them and going to church, and I really loved everything that I knew about God. And so whenever I was 6 years old, I decided to give my life to Christ, and I started following Him. And basically, whenever I got to college, I joined a campus ministry called the Navigators, and I just learned so many new ways to explore my faith and to live out my faith. And it was a time of really great and challenging growth for me my freshman year of college. And then moving into the summer after my freshman year and into the very beginning of my sophomore year, I just had a really deep hunger to know God more, to know who He truly was, and to know Him on a more personal level. But I felt like I didn't have time to seek Him in the way that I wanted to, and I just felt like there were so many other things in my life that took priority over Him. And so I made the decision to drop out of my classes at the time, and I dropped out of school for that year, and decided to take that time instead to seek God, and to find out who He truly was, and to know Him on a more deep and personal level. But it was so interesting because pretty much the day after I decided and went and dropped out of my classes, I woke up the next morning with just a sinking feeling in my stomach, thinking, oh wow, what if I just did this and God isn't real? What if I just gave up school and He's not even there, and I'm just wasting my time by seeking Him? And so I was scared, and I started a process over the next 5 to 6 months of just seeking Him with everything, desperately, because for a while my faith felt like it had been ripped out from under me, and so I sought Him desperately, and I spent hours every day just begging Him to give me faith, to help me see who He was, to teach me who He was, to let me see His character. And it was a frustrating time because a lot of times I was met with a lot of silence, and so there were a lot of doubts and fears during those months. But one day, after about 5 or 6 months, I was driving home to my apartment, and I remember praying to God and saying, Father, if I could somehow just see Your eyes and hear You say, will You come follow me? I think I could. I think I could lay aside my doubts and my fears if I could somehow just see Your eyes and hear You say that to me specifically. But I stopped there and I said, okay, but hold on. I literally am not asking You to come to my apartment, because if I went home to my apartment right now and saw Jesus in my apartment, I'm pretty sure I would die. And I don't want to hear this huge booming voice out of heaven, because I think I would die then too. But God, I don't know exactly what I'm asking for. But I feel like if I knew You were calling me specifically, that I could lay aside those doubts and fears and come. Well, I went up to my apartment as soon as I got home after that car ride, and I pulled out my computer and got on Facebook, and right there on Facebook was a video that Paul had posted before I really knew him. So I watched this video, And basically it started off with these images of all these different eyes showing, just flashing from different people's eyes, and talking about how all of these eyes were created by God, that He created all of them, He created us. And then it went through the story of the gospel that He created us and for a relationship with Him, to have perfect unity with Him, but that sin destroyed our relationship with Him. And so because of His great love for us, He restored our relationship. He took it upon Himself to restore the relationship, and basically by Jesus giving His life to pay the atonement for our sins. So it went through this story of the gospel, and at the end, and it was from the perspective of Jesus talking. And so then at the end, the video goes black and it just says, "Will you come follow me?" And at that moment, my doubts and my fears were gone, because I knew that God had heard my prayer that night and that He called me to follow Him. And so from that time, I definitely have struggled with more fears and more questions, but ultimately I heard His specific call for me to come follow Him. And so I laid down my fears and my doubts that day and followed Jesus without looking back. And that's my story.